So we're going to just present this in 5 parts. The first part is the benefits of partnership between the Conservation Commission and the Rotary Club of Weston Wayland. The second is the site that we would like to adopt, which is the Sears Field. Third item is safety. Fourth is our action plan, and 5 is our business plan. This is the Sears driveway field taken from the Google image taken from the Rotary manual. You can see the yellow line there going basically south to north. On the left side, that is the Sears driveway. There's a small access path to the field. And here is an image of it, looking from the house of one of our Rotary Club members who's on also tonight, Tim Gavin. He took this picture just a short time ago. He's taking it from his backyard. You can see on the right there a neighbor's fence as well, with a lot of growth there around the fence. We visited the field last Friday, and we took some notes and added to this Google image. You can see Tim's house in the low left corner. That's that whole area is Tim's, including his barn there. So oops, sorry, I'll leave that up. The benefits of partnership that we want to talk about. The Rotary Club intends this project to be of good benefit of the town of Weston. We hope to reclaim this field from the invasive species and make the field more supportive of pollinators. In doing so, this project will be an intergenerational educational effort for the town of Weston. The benefits to the Rotary Club will be a good ongoing exposure of Rotary to the residents of the town, and our service in this field accomplishes a Rotary goal of service above self. We envision this as a 5-year partnership with the opportunity to extend indefinitely. The Rotary Club is well established in the community. We have 25 years of antique classic car shows on the town green, 30 years of service to Bristol Lodge Soup Kitchen in Waltham, and 50 years of presenting scholarships to graduating high school seniors in both Weston and Wayland. We have very productive relationships with the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, our college level Rotaract group, Interact at the high school, and many other town organizations. We will provide volunteer person power via Rotary and our partners such as these. Okay, so number 2 on our list is the site that we request to adopt. As mentioned, Tim Gavin lives right next to the site. He owns the residence, and Tim would like for his residents to help to support the volunteers in the field in what way he and his family might be able. Tim is on the board of the Weston Scout House in Weston, and he's a scout leader. So at our site visit of last Friday, Tim noted that there's goldenrod, lavender hyssop, milkweed in the field. He explained that deer sometimes occupy the field and that there's an abundance of fireflies in summer. The 2015 mowing manual tells us the field has an infestation of black swallowwort vine, but also a healthy population of grasses, asters, and milkweed. And the 2020 field assessment states that the field has over 50% invasives. It's also scattered goldenrod, milkweed, black-eyed Susan, and vetch. Also smaller amounts of morning glory, rubus, and multiflora rose. You can also see in our image here our proposed startup planting area. We'd like to start there with new plantings and then make later determinations on how to proceed further. That's number 2. We'll move on to number 3, which is safety. We're developing a field and COVID safety procedures and a quarry plan. 5 Rotary persons have volunteered to help with implementation of field safety. We have a legal expert on our team who's helping with waiver documents that will protect each organization. We're also working with our legal expert to make sure that quarry measures are set in place. We propose to install some signage that would help visitors to adhere to safety cautions, but we understand that the Commission's preference is temporary signage, and of course we'll work with the Commission to make sure that any proposed signage program is acceptable and of course abide by the decision. Number 4 is our action plan, which is divided into 6 parts. First part is water availability. We know that there's a stream up north there of the field. Oops, I guess it doesn't quite show up here, but anyway, that's okay. It's just north of the field. And we look to your guidance on this stream as a source for water. Another option is that we can use water from Tim's house. We will water our young plants until they're fully established. Since we will be planting native, drought-tolerant, sustainable varieties, we anticipate these to be self-sustaining. And then next is the soil. We'll investigate the soil and make amendments as needed. We'll test the soil with UMass Amherst Soil Testing Service, and then we'll amend the soil as necessary. Next is in our action plan is invasive species. Over a 5-year plan, we'll manage invasive species in conjunction with commission input using our collective knowledge of positive identification, suppression, removal, and disposal. Of course, we appreciate any recommendations from the commission, and we're happy to work with the contractor that the commission has hired for field maintenance. New plantings. Our first-year plan is to first determine best time of year to begin our planting in our startup planting area. We'll plant what's beneficial to the pollinators, keeping in mind that we should avoid some flora that would be destroyed by larger animals. Volunteer coordination. We have several Rotarians who have already volunteered to organize our volunteer groups that will work in the field. Potential volunteers are Rotary High School and college students, including the Interact and Rotaract clubs, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and basically our community at large. At least one person will be designated as field coordinator, making sure that volunteer groups, that when, coordinating the volunteer groups so that there aren't too many people in the field at the same time. Lastly, under our action plan is education, which will be intergenerational. We'll use the resources of master gardeners, garden clubs, and pollinator groups in our area. In addition to our ongoing environmental improvements, we want to make sure there's a good level of community outreach and education so that the residents of Weston, young and older, can take what they learn and implement it in the town, for their families, and for the pollinators. Lastly, our business plan. As mentioned, we viewed the field last Friday. We're in the works of developing a full business plan and cost analysis. The Rotary Club received a gift from the Rotary District, and so we have been given an initial grant of $500 as a starting fund for this effort. Rotary needs to finalize an internal decision on what costs Rotary will cover and then discuss with the commission. It's possible that Rotary could pay for all or some of the maintenance of the field so that we might relieve the town conservation budget. We hope to collect small tools and equipment from friends and families, and we'll use what we have. We have established a fundraising team led by a Rotarian. And once we have a plan, understand the costs, and have set up a budget, our subject matter experts will do a cost analysis and will ask for funds from our Rotary Club. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. That was extremely informative. I really appreciate it. I think this is a very exciting proposal, certainly something new for us as a commission to partner with a private organization to do this work. I have several questions, some of which relate to substance, some of which are process. I guess my first process question is, have you thought about timing and what is your goal to, if we were to give you the go ahead, what would be your timing on this?
I think that we're still in the process of assessing everything and developing our action plan. Mm-hmm. I think we will be in the field this spring, making more observations, and as far as the startup plantings, I'm not sure. Katya might be able to speak better to that. She's the master gardener. Katya, would you be able to speak to that as far as timing?
Sure. So it depends on the level of invasives that are in the field. The preliminary walk did show, and I think the synopsis also showed about 50% of the field is covered by invasive species. That's why we're starting with a small area. Best case scenario is that we eradicate the invasives and have the soil ready by the fall. So that way we can plant sometime, let's say late September, October, That way there will be more rains in the fall so that we won't have to utilize other sources of water and the plants will be more established. Again, we'll be planting native drought tolerant species. We have also reached out to Professor Prostak over at UMass Amherst, who is actually a weed science specialist, as well as Professor Catherine Neal over at UNH. She is a professor of, she specializes in pollinator meadow plantings. For their also, for their recommendations as subject matter experts on the timing as well and the procedures as well. So that way we have all of those bases covered. So that's the best case scenario. It can take up to 2 to 3 years to first remove the invasives. So that's basically, I'm giving you the shorter version and the longer version. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. I mean, I'll just comment and then I'll let others go, and maybe Michelle, you can comment. I mean, removal of that number of invasives is an enormous project, as you know. And part of it, and whenever we have, it's all conservation land, right, Michelle? This is all our land.
Yes, correct.
So, we take a fairly micromanaging approach to how invasives are removed from conservation land. As an example, we prefer that they not be clear cut with some heavy piece of machinery or something like that. So that's obviously something that would have to be developed. Have you developed a sort of a detailed, I know Charlie, I appreciate the plan that you outlined for us. Drilling down a little bit on the sort of land management part of it, do you have a written plan that's that you could present, or do you expect to do that at some point?
Yes.
Maybe that's Katya, I don't know, one of you two.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the main points that we wanted to bring across today is that this is going to be a partnership with you guys in terms of every step of the way to make sure that it is in congruence with, in conjunction with your expectations and how you guys want this to be done, for understandable reasons that, again, we look to your guidance on how we should be removing those invasives and what we should not be doing. There's many different ways to do it, and there's a lot of different wrong ways to do it, and we want to make sure that we do it the right way.
Yeah. Okay. Michelle, do you have any comments initially at this stage?
I think this was excellent, Charlie. I mean, this is an exciting project. I mean, having worked on land management projects for 17 years, it's a massive undertaking to try to remove invasives. So I think it's good that you've decided to sort of start small and work through the field. And I talked to Debbie Howell, the conservation assistant in the office this evening. And, I think what I would, recommend if the commission feels comfortable is certainly you clearly have put a lot of thought into this. A lot of people might get involved, a lot of volunteer efforts. We obviously want you to be successful, and certainly you want to be successful. So my only slight cautious optimism is the fact that, trying to combat some of these invasives can be incredibly difficult. Like eradication will not happen. So, I wouldn't use words like that, but control and reduction and enhancement of native pollinators, those are all things that can happen. So I would just see about sort of establishing a site visit, figuring out which location you want to work with, working on the details with Debbie. The ConComm, of course, is very interested, and I would assume be very supportive of this concept. And sadly, we just have so little time to deal with land management at our ConComm meetings. So I think if the commission feels comfortable after asking some questions, a lot of this could be happening just between you and Debbie Howell and possibly Reese Tellis, commission member. And then we can get Jim Anza perhaps involved with a site visit, just so he can understand. Normally he just mows sometime between like June 15th and July 15th. So we'll want to make sure he knows what to do and not to do in terms of an initial mow this year.
Have you guys talked to Jim Anza?
Not
No,
yet.
we would like to do that. We feel that would be a very good thing to walk through the field with Jim. As soon as,
Okay. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's right.
okay.
Let me ask any member of the commission, if they have any questions or comments at this point.
Let's see.
I'm just curious as to the size of the field and what Michelle's assessment in terms of the, I'm not familiar with this field, so it's kind of the invasive load. How many are there? And
Yeah, so Debbie did share the Excel spreadsheet I put together this summer when I conducted a site visit. I will say the Sears fields are heavily infested with bittersweet, with swallowwort, and a handful of other things. There's also raspberries, rubus, which is a native, but it's an invasive native. So there's a plentiful, and there's buckthorn as well. So there's plentiful invasives in there. And as you know, Reese knows, swallowwort, some of these are very difficult to try to control without chemicals. And I know we're not talking chemicals at this point, and that's fine. But I think it's a matter of just identifying, certainly you can go after a piece, and with heavy machinery, you could remove some of the root mass and try to pick and weed and plant, but obviously that's intensive. So we'll have to talk more about that with Debbie and Reese. Alternatively, you could do an aggressive mow to really try to just exhaust the nutrients and energy of the plants so that you get more of an herbaceous, it's not beneficial initially to wildlife per se, but at least then it would create a medium where you can try to plant. But there's a couple different options, and it seems like you have a great team of people and experts who can offer advice on how to deal with these things as well.
So one question about that, obviously you guys are invested in this and kind of in it for the long term, but this is obviously a very long-term project. Do you think that it's sustainable with the other members of the Rotary? Is everyone excited? I know obviously it's helpful to have a neighbor involved, so that's great, but 10 years from now, will people still care about this?
So the Rotary has been around for 50 years. The car show has been around for 25 years. And Charlie, feel free to, talk over me on this one. But if there's one thing that we know, it's longevity. We have 12
I don't
members.
plan on leaving.
Yeah,
I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, either my house or the Rotary. So the next 30 years, I'll make sure that Rotary stays involved.
Yeah, and so from that perspective, I don't anticipate that to be an issue. From the very beginning, we had 12 Rotarians already joining the conservation team, and every week we're adding more and more Rotarians. It's been kind of like a Rotary boom. So we really do fully anticipate, and we anticipate this to be also an intergenerational educational project. So that way, not only will it be here, but if we could bring that across to other citizens of Weston, maybe they can bring that, what they learned home, and also start up their own mini kind of pollinator gardens, which will help all of Weston.
Reese, do you have any other questions at this point?
I think I'm good. I'm excited about this idea, as long as it's
Anybody else? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments?
I have a weird one.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
So when you're doing something like this, and say you cleared an area, can you then, Michelle, do this? Can you take heavy cardboard, put it down, put other soil on top of it to plant your pollinators and stuff on it to get them established and to block the sunlight, to speed up the process a little bit, and try it in a section to keep any seed that's already been dropped from coming up, and also to just start an area of the re-pollinator garden type pollination area. Could you do that?
Possible, we've seen different homeowners use tarp, which smothers it. But you often, with a tarp, you'd have to leave it for 3 years.
Yes, but cardboard actually will break down.
Right. So yeah.
And so what I'm saying is you could take an area, clear it, take heavy cardboard, a few layers of it, lay that down in that area, put some soil that is like a compost type soil that's not anything that has anything bad in it, and plant that with seed.
Yeah, I think it could work. I mean, obviously you're only limited by how much cardboard and like square footage you can do in a particular year. But certainly knotweed would pop out through. I don't think like swallowwort or bittersweet would be able to actually kind of come up through it. So it'd be worth like talking about different options and management tools that would be a worthy experiment to see how it functions.
I think that is something that we would expect, is to have information about the assessment of the field, what's there, and then your various strategies so that we can approve those as you move forward. And I would imagine.
So here's what I'd like to propose, just in the interest of time, and again, not to cut off anybody. I think unless somebody on the commission raises their hand now, I think I get the sense of the commission that we support this project. We want to move forward with it, recognizing that we are at a very initial early stage. And as Katya said, this is going to take a little while, even just to start removing invasives. What I think I'd like to do is have an informal working group. And Reese, if you don't mind helping on that, that would be great. Cynthia, if you want to, that would be great as well. With Debbie Howell from our office, from the Conservation Office, and a few Rotarians, a few folks from the Rotary Club, not everybody, because I want this to be sort of a working group. And I think maybe the first thing ought to be that Debbie ought to sort of provide a list of questions and action items that we need specific answers to, timing, where you're going to do this, et cetera. That probably will have to involve a site walk. I'm happy to participate in that as well. But why don't we, offline, try to get that sort of initial step going, and that will at least, move this thing forward. I think, the key for me is that we have this thing well thought out, and I think you guys have thought about it at a fairly high level, but I think we need to drill down a little bit more on specifics, including type of equipment you're going to use to remove invasives, what part of the field you're going to try, because you can't obviously do it all at once, that sort of thing. And then we can go from there. Michelle, does that make sense for you?
Yeah, I think it does. I guess the question is what you need to be brought back to the commission in terms of, we're going to probably have a busy we want this to move forward if the materials are outlined well. So are you comfortable, Joe, with the subgroup if they reach a consensus, it feels like it's a successful project to allow the Rotary Club to move forward?
Well, I think I want to have at least one more appearance at an open meeting where we kind of, get a chance to review all of this. I also want to make sure, I want to run it by legal, as they say, in the corporate world, and just, by the selectmen and the town manager, just to make sure, I think, Charlie, you flagged a few key, potential legal issues regarding volunteers and things like that. I don't think there's going to be issues, but I think we need to get that buttoned up as well, so there are no surprises.
Well, this is conservation land. I wouldn't recommend, certainly during COVID, what I was suggesting to Debbie is they can file a group use permit. Yep. And so that would then bring it through the emergency management team in terms of COVID protocol and stuff. But I don't think you necessarily need to get the selectmen involved per se on this.
Okay, maybe not the selectmen, but at least the town manager, so they know what's going on here.
How should we involve him? I've never done that before.
I'll talk to him about it.
Okay.
Hey Joe, can I ask a really quick question?
Hi, Allison.
Hi. I joined late, so I don't really know what's all this is about, but I just want to make sure this is ConComm land. Is there ever a reason why we wouldn't want to permit a project like this? Like if somebody's trying to do something that's not, like I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, so that if we say yes to this and then another group wants to do something, are they going to say, well, you said yes to them? I just want to make sure that there's, something that we don't like.
I can think of something. Which is if somebody just wanted to clean up a field so that they could, play golf on it or something like that.
Or improve the viewscape from their house. That it sounds like they're just making it good for the town, but really it just improves the view from two people's homes. And
I think that's the information that we need to.
So I don't know what then we say. I just want to make sure that we can say no to somebody else. And not say yes to this one and then have people get mad.
So I don't get what the problem is with removing invasive species in a way that's approved by ConComm on conservation land. Because
I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's like a field that's not really a field anymore. In some cases, someone could say, well, it was a field, but you know what I mean? And we may not want it to be a field. So I just want to make sure that you can't be calling this two things that really aren't the same. They could say that it's the same, you know? I just don't want to get ourselves in trouble.
but we call it, have we called this a field in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, it was a field, and I know every year we have to give up some of the conservation land because invasives grow in and we can't cut them back far enough. So I just don't see, if this was a field and the choice is keeping it a field, even if it improves somebody's view with the removal of invasive species done in a proper way without big equipment and without planting something that wouldn't normally be found in the field, then I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I wish more people would do that with invasives that they see wherever they see. You know, it's just, I don't see what the problem is. As long as it's done in the proper way, you know, there's, who's
I
going to
guess
lose except for the
way I would
invasives?
respond, Allison, would be, I think we would look at each case individually, and we're not giving the thumbs up to this one yet because we have to look at the details of their operational plan and their management plan and make sure that it's consistent with what we would want them to do. And if somebody else came with a plan that wasn't thought out, you know, let's say we approve this and somebody comes next year with a plan that's not as well thought out, we can reject it, you know, based
Yeah,
on.
we can. I agree that we can easily reject, especially if it's like based on faulty, you know, they want to throw down tons of chemicals or they want to do it in a weird way. I just want to make sure that if they maintain this, I don't know. So to make sure that, yeah, I guess as long as there's not some other field that we're like, well, that's not really a field and we don't want that to be a field. And they'd say, well, you let them make it be a field. So I just want to make sure that, you know, like somebody who wants to clear conservation land so they have a better big viewscape.
Yeah.
And we don't generally let people do that.
Right. Well, I think
even if it's invasives, we
Yeah.
don't generally let them clear down stuff and make it be a field.
Right. Well, I think it depends on the field that we're talking about.
Well, that's clearing. I mean, that same person came and said, I would like to get rid of the invasives, and they actually were only getting rid of invasives, we wouldn't object to that if they did it in the proper way.
And I think it's a good thing to just remember, though, for the commission that there are basically 26 fields in town. Through the assessment this past summer, we abandoned 2-ish. In the past, we've abandoned 1 because they're small, they're really big and invasive problems. They're expensive to manage. And we agreed to abandon them, not because fields aren't a good, important habitat, but it was a cost thing. And 2 of those neighbors came back and said, hey, we will pay for your mowing contractor to mow them or our landscaper to mow them. And we've allowed that through very careful use permits, because it's not to say that the field itself isn't, you know, some type of habitat. It's more of, it was too small and we chose to spend our money on other things. So I would consider this is definitely a field. It gets mowed every year. It's definitely an invasive species nightmare. It does have, you know, pollinating plants. So I didn't put it on my list to abandon, partly because one of my criteria about abandoning fields too is just, you know, what kind of neighbors is it going to impact? And these 2 neighbors, Mr. Gavin being one of them, you know, this is what they see every day. And that's an important, you know, vista for them. So I think the fact that there is a group that's committed, put together quite a bit of information, we'll keep working with the subgroup to kind of come up with more details. You know, part of me was looking at like, what's the worst thing that can happen? No offense, you know, but the invasives will continue. I mean, there's really no negative thing that can come out of this. Hopefully it'll be very successful and it'll be a great educational project. And this will be a long-term partnership between residents and ConComm. So I don't see this as anything negative coming out of this.
So what
I
would
don't
like to
either. I just want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up for any problems coming on the backside. But as long as we can say, well, there wasn't really a field there before, and someone can't then throw up, I don't know, old satellite photos that show that it was, and they think it's, I don't know. I just want to make sure, because sometimes it comes back to haunt us.
John has a question about whether it matters that this is along the driveway to the Malone house where Landsec has its office. And I don't think it does. I mean, this is not, I don't think that would have, Michelle, any legal, I don't know if your question was sort of from a legal standpoint, John, but I don't think it matters.
No, I mean, certainly one of the things when you think about field restoration, this would not be a priority field for me because it isn't really viewed by too many people. But again, we have a champion. Really, a lot of these projects are based on, who's got a vision and who's got the time and energy to do it, a champion. We have a champion here, they're a direct abutter. Of course you want to maintain and manage that field. And so it makes perfect sense. From an ecological standpoint, there's plenty of other fields that would probably benefit better, but I think it's a great project for a group to see, as long as you don't bite off so much, to see what you can accomplish.
So here's what I'd like to do, recognizing that we're already half an hour behind. I think I'd like to have a motion and a vote to endorse this concept, subject to the finalization of what would you want to call it? An operation and management plan, Michelle?
That's good.
Okay, so subject to final approval of an operation and management plan, but that at least at this stage that the Conservation Commission endorses the concept of a partnership with the Rotary Club for the Rotary Club to undertake this work. So could I have a motion to that?
I move to endorse this, the Rotary Club's program to move ahead until we have a final presentation and plan.
Great, thank you, Ellen. Is there a second? Josh seconded. Roll call vote, please. Ellen?
Sure. Joe Berman,
Yes?
Reese Tellis,
Yes.
Allison Barlow,
Yes.
Cynthia Chapra,
Yes.
Becca Lovey,
Yes.
and I'm yes. And Josh, is Josh still on here?
I'm
Yeah,
here.
he said yes.
Yeah, and Josh Feinblum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I said yes. Okay.
Am I the new
Great.
Becca?
Yeah.
So Tim, John, Charlie, Katya, I think the next step would be for one of you to reach out to Debbie Howell and let's get a meeting set up. And I think, we need to sort of flag the issues that we need to get more information on, and we'll go from there. And then maybe set up a site walk in a couple of weeks. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you all. This is very exciting. It's a new endeavor for us. And I think it's going to be, could be a great template for more work in Weston. So thank you to the